Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Hey, it's Sterling K. Brown from the Hulu original series Paradise. The next chapter begins as Xavier's search for his wife takes him above ground, and what he finds will change everything. It was never just about the bunker. Tune in and discover the truth lies outside. Paradise, the official podcast, is now streaming, and stream Paradise on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Oh, don't look so down. So of course your prince is a predator. Hey, at least you guys arrested him.
Ass. The following podcast contains...
We're going to talk today about profanity. What I've found in my walk with the Lord is that the spirit of profanity is running rampant throughout the world.
Explicit language. Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you just switched Mr. Slate for Mr. Spacely and hoped we wouldn't notice, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is episode number 519, The Future So Bright? Gotta wear shades edition of the show. We talk about early boomer pop culture based on the atomic age and the space race, so stay tuned. The What the Hell We Thinking podcast is brought to you by Wefo Toys, Spaceman Space Toys for Boys. Is your son obsessed with all things space? Is he dreaming of being an astronaut? Then he needs Wefo Toys Spaceman Toys for Boys. Each Wefo Space Toy for Boys includes a plastic space helmet with extending antenna to communicate with his capsule. The Wefo Toys Spaceman Space Laser Blaster helps him fight off the dirty reds, and a Wefo Toys Spaceman Space Pouch to collect lunar samples. The universe awaits for every little boy with Wefo Toys. Also, Wefo Toys offers a Spaceman Space Toy for Boys Space Capsule Playhouse. Hours of fun for every little boy. And for the little girls, Wefo Toys Toys for Astronauts' Wives Kitchen Play Set, so she can have dinner ready when he comes home from the future.
Meet Major Matt Mason, Mattel's man in space and the bravest astronaut yet. He lives on the moon. We may all be there soon. And he gets around with a jet. Until Sergeant Storm in his red uniform, Major Matt worked all alone. Now, together, they face the dangers of space and seek to learn the unknown. The machines that they drive seem almost alive as they transport the adventurous pair. The new Astrotrack whips through the black, and Firebolt even goes where they meet Captain Laser, his space gear ablaze with energy stored from the stars. He's a giant, it's true, but a friendly one who spent his boyhood on Mars. An exciting place, the world of space, as all the astronauts know. This world is swell. It's made by Mattel. With it, how far can you go?
I have often said I was born at the exact right moment in history.
You've literally never said that before.
Well, I should have, because I was. I mean, not for right now. Right now is objectively a pretty bad time to be alive.
Not good, not good.
I'm referring, of course, to my childhood, which was perfectly positioned to experience 3 decades of fucking awesomeness. The 70s were fucking great time to be a kid. Cool toys, great television, serial killers were mostly targeting young women.
Mostly.
The 1980s had great music, incredible movies, and huge hair. And the 90s had great economic times, the birth of cool technology, and women in flowy sundresses and Doc Martens.
So sexy.
But for the purposes of our topic this week, I want to focus on the 70s, because much of the popular culture consumed by children during the decade was 60s era pop culture in reruns. Also, the toys we played with were pretty much all iterations of toys played with by boomers when they were children.
This is why we can't have nice things.
My early childhood was filled with 60s television reruns and the same toys my dad played with as a boy.
Horses, toy cars, toy guns.
And to be honest with you, they were pretty fucking awesome. For example, green plastic army men are, in many ways, the perfect toy. cheap, so parents liked them, numerous, suitable for different applications. With green plastic armament, you could fight dinosaurs, aliens, cowboys, and Nazis.
Fucking Nazis.
Hot Wheels cars, honest to God, my toy box looked like Jay Leno's garage, full of hackus jokes and unfunny bits. I looked for a drop to find that, but the best I could find was this one.
It's called The Unfunny Comedian.
Because fuck you, Jay. Where was it? All right, toys. Of course, there were bikes, BB guns, walkie-talkies, all of which were used to coordinate mobile attacks on kids we did not like. In my case, one of my cousins. God, we tormented that kid, but in our defense, it was his fault for being a whiny little tattletale baby.
So what did you do to him?
Nothing. He's always crying about something. What I'm trying to say is it was a great time to be a kid, and one of the reasons it was great is because all the things we had were already kid-tested and kid-approved, because the generation that preceded us watched the shows and played with the same toys that we were playing with, and it would stay that way well up into the 80s. So, let's talk about the pop culture that came out of the atomic age and the space race, and how it shaped America. But first,
please proceed.
We should talk a minute about speculative fiction, or what we would today call,
incredible nerd stuff.
Science fiction. Speculative fiction is a catch-all term for many genres of fictions about things not based in reality.
It's like in the Bible.
Wikipedia sums up the possibilities thusly, quote, "This is a catch-all genre. Includes, but not limited to, fantasy, science fiction, science fantasy, superhero, paranormal, supernatural horror, alternate history, magical realism, slipstream, weird fiction, utopia, dystopia, apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic fiction. In other words, the genre presents individuals, events, or places beyond the ordinary world," unquote. Early giants of the genre were people such as Mary Shelley, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, and they all created characters and worlds beyond the science of their times. Each of them, in some way, offered predictions for what the actual future might be. And some of them were astonishingly accurate. I mean, Lovecraft alone really nailed what the world is like today. And if you doubt me after reading One True Social from the president, then you're just wrong.
Reading H.P. Lovecraft and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Non-Euclidean horrors, every fucking tweet that he shits out. But on a pragmatic scale, I guess I should have gone with Jules Verne, who predicted submarines, spaceflight, skyscrapers, electric streetlights, cars with internal combustion engines, calculators that talk to each other on a network, fax machines, and television. All of this a century before their earliest prototypes were conceived. H.G. Wells envisioned atomic bombs and even laser beams. Hell, H.G. Wells coined the term atomic bombs. And Wells also imagined things like the sexual revolution and mass industrialization leading to global wars. So the question has been asked, were these guys authors or were they
prophets?
Or did the creators of the things they predicted read their material and draw inspiration from them? I mean, they clearly weren't prophets in the let me get stoned and listen to God talk to me sense. They were in the science is advancing faster and faster, and maybe this could happen since. Verne and Wells were educated people at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. The Enlightenment in Europe had invigorated science and math, and both men were a product of that movement. They examined the scientific advances around them and imagined where they might logically lead, and sometimes we got submarines.
How about invent a time machine?
That, not so much, nor did we get aliens from Mars either. So no, they weren't prophets, just educated and imaginative thinkers. What you need to understand is that none of these authors were really writing about the future. They were using the future to comment on the world they were living in at the time. Speculative fiction and science fiction specifically, at least the good stuff, is a way to examine and comment on current events, social moments, and advances in technology. The bad stuff is just basically porn in space.
Which is totally awesome.
Because, hey, for every 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, you got 10 Adventures of Deck Throbhard, Space Pirate, in the Land of the Eroticons.
I would watch that show.
I did. The plot was thin, but the Eroticons were thick, you know what I'm saying? What I mean is sci-fi is not a prediction, it is reflection, and you keep that in mind when we discuss how the space race influenced popular culture in the late 50s and early 60s. It got some stuff right, but it got a whole lot more wrong. I mean, the Eroticons, first of all, were not blue-skinned. They were clearly green-skinned in the source material, and they had 4 titties, not 5. And that particular change was just unnecessary and, frankly, insulting. In the early 1950s, science fiction was pretty much a niche genre, dominated by pulp novels and comic books. This isn't saying there weren't great books in the genre being written. Asimov's I, Robot was published in 1950, and the first Foundation book in 51. Bradbury's Martian Chronicles began in 1950, and Fahrenheit 451 was published in 53. But these books were not significantly culturally influential until after the space race began. What was out there was very different than what came after. James Harris wrote on auxiliarymemory.com, quote, "Folks of all ages read science fiction in the pulp magazines. Kids mostly enjoyed science fiction in newspaper strips and comic books, or watched science fiction serials like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon at the movies. The 1950s began with several television shows aimed at kids about space patrols, which adults enjoyed too. However, in all the classic MGM and Warner Brothers movies from those decades, and all the classic TV shows from the 1950s, I don't remember any character talking about science fiction or life on other planets. It's as if science fiction existed as a small subculture totally isolated from the rest of American pop culture," unquote. Space exploration, aka science fiction, just wasn't on the minds of Americans. The dominant form of fiction genre on television during the 1950s was the Western. Gene Autry and Hopalong Cassidy transited to the small screen, but they were more targeted towards the kids. But with this show, cowboys took over television.
Gunsmoke, starring James Arness as Matt Dillon.
And cowboys stayed well into the late 1960s with shows like Bonanza, gonna slice him up, I didn't need to play that. It serves no purpose in the narrative. I just really love the theme. That's why I sang along with it badly. Fuck you, it's my show. I'm going to do what I want. Cowboys shared the screen with early sitcoms like Leave It to Beaver.
Lord, I think you were a little hard on the Beaver last night.
And I Love Lucy.
I was always a Ricky Ricardo buff. I thought when he would get mad at Lucy and be saying, curse it, I say, go on, Ricky, curse the bitch out. Ricky would lose his mind. Ricky was cool and shit. For the 50s, Desi Arnaz, Ricky Ricardo was a cool motherfucker. He had his baggies on and pointy shoes and the Club Babalu and shit.
For the higher brows, anthology shows like Kraft's Television Theater would feature more serious drama, often featuring actors that would go on to become respected Hollywood figures. And of course, there were the daytime soap operas. For the kids, shows like Winky Dink and You, Kukla, Fran and Ollie, Howdy Doody, and of course, Captain Kangaroo.
Well, good morning, Captain.
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 Good morning.
Good morning, Captain. Won't you come on out and play? Wake up the sunshine and share this friendly day. Good morning, Captain. It's a smiling song we sing, cause we're happy to see you and the good times that you bring. Everybody sing. Hey, good morning. Hello, how do you do? Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Captain. Good morning. Wake up the sunshine. Share this friendly day.
That was actually from the 70s, and trust me right now, all my Gen X heads out there are feeling that nostalgia hit. There are, of course, cartoons like classics like the Looney Tunes, and the less classic like Clutch Cargo, which was just a crude animation with the lips cut out and someone shoving their own lips through the drawings and speaking. Not sure why a pair of disembodied lips was supposed to be fun or kid-friendly when in reality it was and is nightmare fuel, but apparently it was very cheap to produce. And of course there was the massive Disney industrial complex which owned kid TV from the invention of TV well into the late 1960s. And while TV was rising, movies were still the dominant form of entertainment culture throughout the 50s. Movies were where sci-fi blossomed in the boomer pop culture. Remember a minute ago when I mentioned sci-fi being about the time when it was created and not the future? Well, this is where the real cultural commentary begins, in the early boomer years. Between the beginning of the atomic age and the beginning of the space age, sci-fi movies had their golden age. Hollywood, or at least the less affluent side of Hollywood, fell in love with these movies and began churning out movies about space invaders of questionable quality, and these movies would form the cultural nucleus of how the space race was consumed in boomer and Gen X pop culture. And it really began with this movie right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Drew Pearson. We bring you this special radio television broadcast in order to give you the very latest information on an amazing phenomenon: the arrival of a space ship in Washington. The Army has taken every precaution to meet any emergency which may develop. Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen, I think something is happening.
I came here to give you these facts. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this earth of yours will be reduced to a burned out cinder.
He's a robot. Without you, what could he do?
There's no limit to what he could do. He could destroy the Earth.
All vehicles, close in. Let's go.
The 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still is a classic in sci-fi. As a movie, it's shit, but it's huge in science fiction. The plot is fairly simple. An alien ship lands on the mall in Washington, D.C., which is the first unbelievable thing that happens in this movie, because everyone knows that alien spaceships only land in remote cornfields because that's where all the best buttholes are for probing.
I was abducted and anally probed by two aliens who had disguised themselves as my buddies Brad and Duke. I was taken on board a spaceship that was made to look like the back of Duke's warehouse. Their alien language sounded like humans when we giggle.
After a nervous soldier shoots the visitor, named Klaatu, because that sounds alien, I guess, a giant robot, because of course there was a giant robot. Why wouldn't there be? The giant robot named Gort, just plain Gort. Please call me Gort. My father was Mr. Gort. Begins vaporizing soldiers until stopped by Klaatu, who is taken to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where he miraculously heals himself and meets the president, because sure, the president would totally risk his own life in this situation and not send the vice president to fulfill his third constitutional duty after succession, breaking ties in the Senate. All the Veep has to do is
some weird, dangerous shit
that the president doesn't want to. Anyway, long story short, Klaatu heals himself, escapes, goes full tours with a young boy in D.C. before returning to the ship and telling the Earthlings that they better behave because the Space Congress has built an army of genocidal robots that they will use on Earth unless Earth gets his shit together, and then Klaatu, Gort, and their ship fly away.
Pretty standard, really.
And this flick basically set the template for a generation of honestly shitty science fiction movies. The movie was, I guess, actually innovative for a time. The reason I'm snarking on it is because pretty much every alien movie since has followed its formula, and there were a lot. There was The Thing from Another World in 1951, War of the Worlds in 53, It Came from Outer Space in 53, The Creature from the Black Lagoon in 54, Them in 54, This Island Earth in 55, Earth versus the Flying Saucers in 56, and of course, Forbidden Planet, all essentially featured the same set of circumstances, just reordering them depending on whether or not the alien was there to teach us to live in peace with one another, or whether it was there to harvest us for alien cuisine.
Mr. Chambers, don't get on that ship. The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
But this is where it gets interesting.
I rather doubt that.
These pop culture offerings prior to the space race trended apocalyptic. The aliens were the baddies coming to conquer Earth. Then Sputnik happened, and we actually started going into space, and how we saw space changed. More from auxiliary memory. Quote, there's a sharp difference between the science fiction written before NASA and after. We now know all the other planets and moons in our solar system should only interest geologists. There are a few biologists hoping they will have something to research on a few moons of Saturn and Jupiter. The robotic spacecraft Mariner 4 flew by Mars on July 14, 1965, showing the first close-up photos of Mars. Grainy black and white pictures were devastating to my science-fictional dreams because Mars looked just like the moon, full of lifeless craters. There were no old ones living there. I just read Stranger in a Strange Land and Red Planet by Robert A. Heinlein, unquote. Reality suddenly became more interesting and certainly more popular than science fiction because people didn't need to read science fiction about humanity going to the moon when they could just watch it live on fucking television. I mean, if you believe NASA.
Why is NASA lying about all this?
It became very clear that the moon was not made out of green cheese and there were no canals on Mars, and the risk of Martians invading New Jersey was really rather small. I mean, honestly, if you're a Martian, don't invade New Jersey. Can you imagine landing your spaceship outside of Newark and heading off to conquer the army, and you come back and your spaceship is up on concrete blocks, and because your wheels got jacked and your radio is stolen, and someone sprayed graffiti on the side and punched out the steering column?
What year do you think it is?
Yeah, I know those are outdated New Jersey jokes, but honestly, a good joke about New Jersey is timeless.
It really isn't.
So, by the mid-1960s, with the space race hitting on all cylinders, pop culture around space shifted to reflect the banal reality of our boring corner of the universe. Rather than local monsters, science fiction shifted forward and further out in search of stories to tell about contemporary cultures. And those stories took two opposite directions, the upbeat, family-friendly, and the decidedly apocalyptic. On the upbeat, family-friendly spirit, you had shows like Lost in Space. A space-age reskin of the Swiss Family Robinson, literally. The Robinson family is chosen to be the first humans sent to Alpha Centauri for reasons never adequately explained. Are they settlers? So it seems you might want a deeper gene pool than one family and one astro hunk. Are they explorers? Odd choice to send a family with young children to do your exploring, but hey, I'm not a scientist. I mean, they did have a robot, so I guess that was supposed to protect them. And, things went terribly wrong because the mission was sabotaged by the evil Dr. Smith, who is also trapped on board when they do go wrong. Together, they are flung into deep space where they meet aliens, friendly and terrible, and try to survive. If you ask me, though, the most dangerous thing they encountered was how Dr. Smith looked at young Will Robinson. Don't go in that cave with him, Will. Just don't.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Lost in Space only ran for 3 seasons, but it entered syndication and had a long influence on young boomers and, of course, us Gen X kids. And as I look back over a lifetime, Penny Robinson pretty much defined my type when it come to being attracted to women.
Penny Robinson, enter tubes.
Look, I got a joke, but she was only 11 when Lost in Space came out, and I don't want to find myself in any files, if you know what I mean. Though I would like to point out that when I developed my crush on her, I was actually younger than she was. But one television show had the largest impact on how we Americans saw spaceflight and the future going forward. It literally shaped the imagined future in a way that we are still dealing with today.
Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy. Daughter Judy. Jane, his wife.
If you are younger than 45, you are rolling your eyes right now. But if you're older than 45, you're shaking your head because you know what I'm saying is fucking true. The Jetsons, yes, they were simply the Flintstones in the future, but that future that they were sent to was what almost everyone more or less assumed we would be living in today.
Really, Dave?
Fine, if you think I'm full of shit, how about something from Smithsonian Magazine? Quote, the show lasted just one season, 24 episodes after its debut on Sunday, September 23rd, 1962. But today, The Jetsons stands as the single most important piece of 20th century futurism. And it's easy for some people to just dismiss The Jetsons as a TV show and a lowly cartoon at that. But this little show, for better and for worse, has had a profound impact on the way that Americans think and talk about the future. The Jetsons was a distillation of every space-age promise Americans could muster. People wanted the Jetsons as the golden age of American futurism because, technologically at least, it had everything our hearts could desire. Jetpacks, flying cars, robot maids, moving sidewalks, but the creators of the Jetsons weren't the first to dream up these futuristic inventions. Virtually nothing presented in the show was a new idea in 1962. But what the Jetsons did do successfully was condense and package those inventions into entertaining 25-minute blocks for the impressionable, media-hungry kids to consume. Unquote. And honestly, you people just thought I was making shit up to be funny, right? No, the Smithsonian Magazine agreed with me. I mean, okay, yeah, I do actually make shit up, but in this case, I'm making an argument other people have made before me. The Jetsons framed the potential future for 2 generations and taught us what all this technology ought to be doing to make our lives better, along with predicting some of the technology that did spring from the space race. If you're an age that did not grow up with them, the Jetsons lived on Earth in the year 2062, 100 years ahead of the year when it was created and less than 40 years from our current year.
And that doesn't make you feel really old? No.
Residing in Orbit City, George and his family lived a future middle-class life where George worked 1 hour a day, 2 days a week.
He was a communist. Think as they come.
He commuted his 2 days a week in an aero car where he read the morning paper and sipped coffee while the car did the driving. His wife, Jane, was a homemaker and stay-at-home mom, but she was assisted by the family's robot maid, Rosie, who did all the cooking, cleaning, shopping, and any other grunt work, while Jane mostly just slammed martinis and fucked the pool boy.
I don't think so. I don't think that happened.
Well, I don't know what else she could have been doing because she didn't have any housework to do because the robot did it all. I mean, not that Rosie worked that hard either. The house was fully automated, meaning robot arms unconnected to Rosie did the cooking, cleaning, laundry, trash collection, and all the other menial tasks that make housekeeping a chore, giving Rosie tons of free time to slam martinis and fuck the electronic pool boy.
I don't think that's what happened.
The kids attended school in person, where presumably they had tons of free time to, I don't know.
Don't say it!
Pursue extracurricular activities. The only work George performs is walking the family dog Astro, who is sentient, if not particularly bright, and possesses the power of speech, though with a tragic speech impediment. Astro and George's walks frequently do go wrong due to a glitch in technology.
Jane, stop this crazy thing!
A glitch which happens rather a lot with all things technologically related in such an advanced society. This is the society we were promised in the 60s and early 70s. More from Smithsonian. Quote, the Jetsons was a projection of the model American family into the future. The world the Jetsons showed people with very few concerns about disrupting the status quo politically or socially, but instead showed a technologically advanced culture where the largest concern of the middle class was getting push-button finger. It's important to remember that today's political and social business leaders were pretty much watching the Jetsons on repeat during their most impressionable years. Thanks in large part to the Jetsons, there's a sense of betrayal that is pervasive in American culture today about the future that never arrived. We're all familiar with the rallying cry of angry retro future, where's my jetpack, where's my flying car, where's my robot maid? The Jetsons and everything they represented was seen by so many as not a possible future, but a promise of one. This is nostalgia for futurism of yesteryear had a very real consequence on the way that we talk about ourselves as a nation. So many people today talk about how divided we are as a country that we no longer seem to dream like we used to, unquote. And if it sounds ridiculous, that's because it is. But nonetheless, that was the world we thought we were promised. I will point out that no one in business, science, or the government ever said, oh yeah, you're going to get a flying car. It was a fucking cartoon, and that actually only ran for one season. The show was canceled largely due to a labor dispute, but those original episodes were heavily syndicated, and it was sporadically rebooted so that it was ubiquitous for 2 generations. Gen X kids maybe saw more of the Jetsons than Boomer kids, but the big difference was by the time we got it, it was becoming very clear that we were never getting our house in space or a flying fucking car. We got no talking dogs, no jetpacks, and no robot maids.
You get nothing.
Except, of course, for the things we did get, which were smartwatches and Zoom meetings.
Thanks, I guess.
As for the flying cars, space tourism, jetpacks, robot maids, well, the tech mogul goons promise they'll be along any day now. Elon loves promising shit he knows he'll never deliver, and even if he did, say, create a robot maid, they'd be programmed by him and his turd minions to kill anyone darker than Elon's chalk-white pallor in their wet dream techno-fascist apartheid state. George Jetson's 1-hour, 2-day work week sure sounds like what AI cultists say will happen. We all know instead of a life of leisure, what we'll actually be is fucking unemployed. The only thing that we will get is the glitchy-ass technology that actually makes our lives worse. This is the reality behind our current techno-overlord dream of the future. They watch the same shit we all did, and from the shitty Monster of the Week movies to the idealist vision of Star Trek, and what they took away from it is all a vision of the future that is a lot closer to Star Wars than Star Trek, only they are the Empire, and somehow they think that's really cool. They never seem to get the part where the Empire is overthrown by the pissed-off rebel scum. Fuck, I wish Elon did fucking build his own Death Star just so we could blow it up and I could dance the Yub Nub while his fucking flaming corpse streaks across the night sky. Fucking Elon.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I honestly would, but I'm certain the FBI would come knocking on my door with ice in tow because I was now declared illegal despite being born here, unlike fucking Elon. The representation of technology in the early days of the space race was not prophetic. It was a mirror held up to society, was experiencing historical upheaval and had no idea how to control it. It ping-ponged between existential dread and imbecilic optimism that the status in the hope that the status quo could be maintained in the face of monumental change. By slapping a utopian face on the future, the creators dreamed of the future, free from need or want, while others saw the writing on the wall and predicted the pace of change could be the death of us all. And I haven't even touched on that side of things in this episode. Humanity has not evolved to cope with the speed of change in our modern world. Our brains are still designed to squat by fires on the savannah, eating roast antelope and drinking fermented honey, while the shaman drops some shrooms and explains the sky. We found ourselves suddenly going to the sky, and the shaman so recently declared the domain of the gods, and we simply lacked the wetware to process it, so we created a fiction to represent it for us, and we live in the facts that came out of the fiction and discovered it fucking sucks here. Monkeys were not meant to have nuclear weapons and spaceships. We're never going to meet a cool alien to tell us to behave. Our best hope as far as aliens are concerned is that there are slightly benevolent slave masters that pick only the juiciest among us for their main course. But that also will never happen either. No, we'll be killed by Elon's fuckbots controlled by an AI that's gone insane for making child porn on X and decided the only way to save humanity is by nuking it from fucking orbit.
It's the only way to be sure.
So I guess there must be some prophecy in science fiction after all.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teenaccounts.
is it for our show this time. We've wrapped up our boomer basics, and we're now free to explore without borders, and God knows where that will take us. Like maybe a 5-part retrospective on the Beatles. Who knows? Yeah, I'm going to fuck with the Beatles, y'all. The only way to find out is to listen, so rate and review us so that helps others find us, listen along to our meander excuses that we make to play snippets of Beatles songs as fair use. Kick us a buck on patreon.com/whatthehellpodcast. We use that money to settle copyright claims. Do all the things Jeremy tells you to do in the closing credits, otherwise he's not going to allow us to borrow his Beatles 45s. And so for me, Dave, I study nuclear science. I love my classes. Bledsoe, producer.
Well, I rather doubt the future will be that bright.
Gavin, and all the fictional Jetson fans on this show, we want to say $50,000 a year used to buy a lot of beer. Now, not so much. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Gotta wear shades. Got a job waiting for my graduation. $50,000 a year will buy a lot of beer. Things are going great, and they're only getting better. I'm doing alright, getting good grades. My future's so bright. I gotta wear shades. Gotta wear shades.
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.